right now we are joined, as we are most Monday afternoons at this time, by Ann Coulter, the best-selling author of many New York Times bestsellers, including most recently In Trump We Trust, E Pluribus Awesome. Ann, thanks for being with us here this afternoon.
Good to talk to you, Howie.
They're having another collective nervous breakdown on many of the cable news networks. I mean, it just gets sillier and sillier, doesn't it?
I know. This is exactly like the proposed Muslim ban day, with just hysteria so far outpacing rationality, and Republicans joining in, I might add.
Yeah,
so
Susan Collins, if you call her a Republican. And I guess
Ryan,
Jeff Flake must have been on a camping trip on the Colorado River or something, so they couldn't find him.
Will Hurd.
Don't know him. Is he a new never Trumper?
He's an alleged Republican. But I would urge elected Republicans, if you have absolutely no sense of history or geopolitics, which apparently very few of them do, just keep your mouth shut. The last time you went crazy over Trump and joined in this mob mentality was, in fact, over the Muslim ban. And I just read and retweeted something yesterday saying, I haven't read the guy's analysis, but he says there are four main groups of Trump supporters. He said the one thing they all agreed with Trump on was the Muslim ban.
Yeah, how about talk about beclowning oneself? John Brennan said it was treasonous what Trump said today in Helsinki. Talk about it takes one to know one. The pot calling the kettle black. Brennan knows something about treason, I would say, after his dirty deeds in the last election.
No, that's right. Though, for your listeners, in case you're not watching TV today, whoa, this is way beyond John Brennan. I mean, John Brennan says that when he sneezes. It is exactly like the Muslim ban day. There has not been another day like this. Fox News, all these Republicans, Jake Tapper, all of them, and I'm citing them to cite people whom you can really usually count on for, some reasonableness. Oh, no. This was the blackest treason. It's like they've never heard of Saudi Arabia. Just to mention one country we're totally buddy with and we're allowed to hold hands with, and they've never heard of, Obama, much less Stalin, their favorite Soviet leader. It's just, this is utter madness. Nothing they are saying makes sense, and it is a universal mob reaction. So if you when you do get near a TV, I recommend you turn it on because they are losing their minds.
And their ratings, I might add. They're
well, at least in the Coulter household, the TV will not be off today, and it is spot welded to MSNBC.
Just for laughs.
Oh my gosh, it's really crazy and curious that nobody cares what this is doing to our foreign policy.
Well, look, what about the fact that they announced these indictments right before he was going to have these so-called indictments right before he was going to have a meeting? I mean, isn't this meddling in foreign affairs? I mean, and to what purpose other than to destabilize the president of the United States' foreign policy? These people are never going to be indicted. The so-called crimes that they committed had no impact, by Rosenstein's own admission, on the election. So what was the point?
Not only by Rosenstein's admission, but by the four corners of the indictment. A few things on that indictment. One thing, yes, your point is incredibly important. I mean, the political timing of this is stunning and despicable. To do this right before the president is meeting with a nuclear-armed power, whom he campaigned on getting along better with, and he won that election, by the way.
And whose citizens he's killed hundreds of, as I just pointed out.
Beyond all possible doubt that this is political. That's point one. Point two, the indictment itself, I mean, in the big... point two, most important point, we still don't have any evidence. So I'm a little tired. I mean, look, who cares? This reminds me of, poor Clarence Thomas and the accusations against Thomas, because so many people, their reaction was, who cares if he talked about a porno movie? He wasn't. Anita Hill, for youngsters out there, Anita Hill accused Clarence Thomas when he was nominated to the Supreme Court of sexual harassment. The sexual harassment involved no touching, no groping, no threats. It was that he talks about pornography a few times, Long Dong Silver or something. So, okay, the general public's reaction was, point one, so what? And that was, as I kept pointing out, quite unfortunate for Clarence Thomas, because we never got to point two. It didn't happen. So exactly the same way with the Russia stuff. Number one, who cares? I think we all kind of suspected the Ruskies were trying to hack everything in sight. I mean, much more important things have been hacked than DNC emails, like the United States government, like the Obama White House. But if they and it still could have been China or Israel or some guy sitting on his bed, but they won't give us the evidence, and I'm starting to find that a little suspicious. It's said, point three, they keep saying on TV, everyone has concluded, everyone, our intelligence agencies, Dan Coates, the Republican or the Senate and the House intelligence committees and the Republicans on those committees. No, they're all looking at the same thing. This is like, I'm sorry, I keep throwing out metaphors at you today, but it's like every immigration group concluding that there are exactly 11 million illegals in this country, and there have been for 40 years, and we haven't gotten one more or one less, a claim I dismantled in my fabulous book, Adios America. But that's because they're all using the same underlying data, i.e. census data. They're assuming that illegal aliens are going to tell the government. Same thing here. They're all relying on the same U.S. intelligence, which, by the way, footnote, same U.S. intelligence that told us there were WMDs in Iraq. So maybe it's true.
I thought it used to be didn't it used to be a left-wing joke that military intelligence is an oxymoron? But now we believe the quote-unquote counterintelligence. But this brings me to another point, though, and your father was an FBI agent, right?
Right after law school, he was.
Wasn't it more than somewhat discouraged for FBI agents, especially those in counterintelligence, to get themselves into potentially blackmailable situations? Like, say, having an affair with a coworker? I mean, why is there no investigation?
Would never have allowed that.
Why was there no investigation of Strzok? Strzok just got promoted up through the ranks because he was such a rabid Democrat. Even though he was violating every rule in the book. Plus, he was a very sloppy spy, wasn't he? I mean,
it's time to disband the FBI. This is not J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, which was so good that liberals are still hysterical over it. My father was in the Bureau for a few years after law school. You not only had to be a lawyer back then in order to be an FBI agent, as I think I've told you on your program before, it wasn't strictly policy, but J. Edgar Hoover, and of course they were all men, generally preferred Catholics and Mormons on the grounds that they were incorruptible. They were very, very honest, and you could trust them. And you didn't really have a lot of trouble under Hoover, and we were actually had an enemy in Russia then.
I'm pretty sure Strzok is a Catholic supposedly, but they're not making Catholics like Pat O'Brien anymore. You know. He was definitely corruptible in spite of his Catholic prep school education and then Georgetown. No, he didn't fit the old pattern for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of crazed media propaganda, I watched pretty much all of those hearings, and as I tweeted out, I wished that Fox News would just cancel all programming and play the hearings. Because again, for those of you with jobs listening to this, you probably couldn't sit home and watch the hearings all day. I promise you, if you watch so much as 10 minutes of it, you could never vote Democrat again. The Democrats did not cover themselves in honor. Republicans were actually quite good. They were all Gowdy-like. like. Gowdy asked a lot of the questions. The chairman of the committee, they were all gentlemen and courtly. And then meanwhile, you'd go to these, blistering, screaming, crazed Democrats on the other side to say nothing of Strzok himself with that smirking.
How about the woman who called him, couldn't pronounce his name, Strozak? And then the guy from Tennessee, Cohen, that represents Memphis, the majority black district, when he said he deserved a Purple Heart. I mean, talk about an insult. Yeah.
No, that they really have lost their minds. But I think I hope Americans will investigate for themselves and just watch a little bit of those hearings to see the smirking, shimmying Strzok. And forget, and that's leaving aside the substance of his answers, that it couldn't be proved beyond a reasonable doubt that a specific action was taken based on his hatred of Trump. He also lied and said, I've never said I don't like Trump supporters. Yeah, he's talking about what they smell like in Walmart.
How about what he says? Well, it's just part of the. When I call the people in Loudoun County, Virginia, ignorant, smelly hillbillies, that's part of the proud tradition of rivalry between Fairfax County and Loudoun County. I live in Wellesley and I work in Needham, and we have a big football game for more than 100 years, and it's a rivalry. If I started calling people from Needham smelly, ignorant hillbillies, I don't think they would consider that part of the proud rivalry, Ann.
Right. And what was particularly insulting in such a New York Times insult was that he was in a Walmart. That is the very definition of everything the left hates. That's why they hated Sarah Palin. That's why they hate Trump, and that's why they hate Trump supporters, because they see them all as Walmart shoppers.
Yeah, I gotta play. Beaver State Finian has just texted in, Ann, and he says the cruel Ann Coulter has no sympathy for the pain and suffering that Anderson Cooper is feeling this afternoon. So I have to play this for you, Ann, so that you can see the suffering that's going on the other cable channels. Cut 3.
You have been watching perhaps one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president at a summit in front of a Russian leader, certainly that I've ever seen. An extraordinary press conference.
Should he have said "cut it out" like Obama said to Obama? I mean, or should he have said there's a red line in the sand upon which you shall not cross, Vlad?
Or maybe he should have given him half of Eastern Europe, like FDR sitting down with Stalin. Oh my gosh, this is so insane.
Yeah, I know. And then
start tearing down the FDR statues.
Yeah, and I mentioned too the old Ted Kennedy thing. Ted Kennedy trying to throw the 1984 election, sending John Tunney over to Russia, which in spite of the fact that you and I and many others have talked about it over and over again since it came out 30 years ago, the vast majority of American people have no idea what we're talking about. And nor will they if they just listen to the network newscasts. Okay, and thanks for being. What's the title of your new book or your latest book that people should buy?
The book that's coming out August 21st, and we're doing a book signing up in Boston, is "Resistance is Futile: How the Trump-Hating Left Lost Its Collective Mind." Today is the video version of my book.
Okay, so you'll be in town in August, and come by the studio, obviously, and we'll be glad to see you. But we'll talk to you next week before then. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Ann Coulter.
Bye bye.